What's up? Welcome to this video and my channel. My name is Heather. I am the owner and creator here at Wicked Whiskey Designs. And today, oh my word, blue, red, white, and blue geode. Look at all that sparkle. I absolutely adore geodes. They are very dramatic. They're very bold. You know, you kind of look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sure that it took so much freaking work. And there is a lot of work to it, but it's really not hard. It's easy. And as long as you follow the steps, they come out absolutely perfect. If you're new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing. This is still somewhat of a new channel. I do try to put out content a couple times a week, you know, if my schedule allows for it. So you definitely want to like and subscribe so that you're notified of when those videos do drop. And everything that I've used to make this cup is listed down below in the description box. So if you want to, you know, grab the same glitter, the same epoxy, the same everything, check in the description box below. All the links are there, and maybe even a coupon code to save you a little bit of money. And do not think about leaving this video with heading over to the tips and tricks section at the end. That's where I share with you all of my tips and tricks that I learned along the way so that you can make this freaking gorgeous cup as easy and as perfect as possible the first time around. I think that pretty much takes care of this intro. I'm going to go ahead and get started, show you everything you need to make this cup. Let's go have some fun. Hey guys, what are we working on this week? This is what, part 3, I guess, of our unofficial series on the red, white, and blue tumblers. The last tumbler we did was the, or I should say the first tumbler we did was what I'm not calling the man's cup, we're calling the anti-sparkle cup, which was very calm and conservative. The next cup we did was the red, white, and blue, you know, sparkle spangled Milky Way, which I love. Today, Geode Day. We are doing geodes. So this is a fun cup. These come out so pretty. They really do. You know, this is just basically taking a glitter geode, turning it into the red, white, and blue flag. And it's just a really pretty way to, you know, to show off your colors for 4th of July. You know, this is a very fun, very easy cup to do. We're going to make it a white base. We're going to go ahead and add all of our glitters, and we're going to go get started. So let's go do that. All right, guys, let's get started. I have a cup, spray painted white. We have Deep Swell Blue, which is a really pretty American blue. I have I'm Blue XL, which is a little bit chunky. I've got Independence Day, which is a traditional red. To get started, we find our coffee and consume. Hold that thought. You know when you make yourself the perfect cup of coffee and then you like ingest half of it in 14 seconds and now you're like, let's go. That's where we're at today, kids. Hang on, buckle up. So, I do this using Mod Podge. Break out the dirty, or I should say the well-loved Mod Podge bottle here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with, my God, this Mod Podge is so, it's so summer Florida thick. All right, so what I know I'm going to do is add a name vertically down the cup. I've made a billion of these, so I have my set way of kind of sizing and spacing things out, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. Basically, how I do this, I put a little dot here, and then I look all the way over to the other side of the cup. I'm not trying to wrap around. I'm just going to try to basically do point to point, and then I just kind of wiggle my Mod Podge a little bit and meet in the middle. Okay. Now, my Mod Podge is super thick right now. I don't know if it has to do with the heat or just because I haven't opened up my jar in a while or what. So I'm just going to go over with a little bit extra. Now, I know we're doing blue, so I think what I'm going to do is start with, we're going to start with the fine. I'll just kind of pour that all down on there. Tap off any extra. And then I do a second pass. When it comes to dark colors like this, you very well may need to have to do, like, let this whole thing, finish this all, let it dry, go back, see if there's something that you need to go in and kind of do a little patchwork on. Like already, where's my thing? Already I can see like right there, you know, the blue is there, but it's not all that coffee and I can't think. It's not as saturated. It's not as full coverage as I want it to be. And when you're working with darker colors, that happens. So, you know, kind of expect that. Now, what I do is basically rotate this 100%. I look and see that those two edges are right there, okay? And then what I do is come down here and basically do the same exact thing. Up, up. Kind of take a look, fill in any spaces. And then I carry it down on the bottom as well. And do the exact same thing I just did. Tap off that excess. Do another pass. And then set that off to the side. Now, everybody has a different workflow. You know, you may have 7 sheets of parchment paper ready to go to where you don't have to dump into your glitter bottle. I always just use one. You know, that's just how I work. So that's where we're at with that. Now, you can already see where that blue is like sketchy. Okay, so I already know we're going to have to go through and do another pass. That's fine. We're not going to do this while this is wet, while the Mod Podge is wet, because all it's going to do is create glumpiness and it's not going to solve anything. So we're going to let this dry completely and then we'll go back. Basically, you're going to do the entire geode. You're going to let everything dry. You'll come back in, and if you need to do second runs on all the colors, then so be it. Is it ideal? No. Is it that big of a deal? No. So what we're going to do next is, let's see here. We got a plot and plan here. The next one's going to be white and then red. And then I'm going to do blue again. Now, the next blue I'm going to do is chunky. So I'm going to hold off on that for a minute. The next color I'm going to do, actually, I take that back. Let's go ahead and do that. So I kind of just, knowing I have 2 other colors in between here, just kind of guesstimate where your half mark is. And let's be honest, these are geodes. They're not, you don't have to be precise and perfect. And you know what I mean? Like this is, you're going to be able to make this beautiful. And then I take my dark blue and again, dump that right on there, knowing full well this is not all going to stick, no matter how much I want. But it's kind of like, you know how you do your first pass when you're doing ombres and then you know you got to go back through? It's the same thing. You just got to wait a little bit for everything to dry before you can go back for your second pass. Does this happen? You know, this is one of those things. Does this happen on every geode I do? No. You know, it's one of those things that, do not get on my gold glitter. Hold that thought. I have an emergency here. Like I was saying, this isn't something that, you know, like if I'm doing normal geodes, is this what I have to do all the time? No, because honestly, most of the geodes that I do and have in my store, most of them are not chunky glitter, you know, aggressively chunky glitter like this is. That's why whenever you are designing geodes, using fine glitter is going to make your life a lot easier. And then just, you know, go from there. But this is a special occasion. So we've got this. Now, what I'm going to do next is, okay, so I already see a problem. I'm going to take my finger and kind of carve out a little bit of space there. All right, so next, got blue gray already there. What we're going to add next is we're going to come right next to that blue. Okay. And we're going to add a little bit of red. I usually add my white, or in this case, white and silver, last. I do not try to drown the color next to it. If it happens, it happens, but even knowing we're going to go back and through and do a second run, I still try to keep those colors as separated as possible. Oops. See, that one got drowned a bit. That's all right. Knowing that you're going to go through and do another pass, you know, like I said, anything that, it's all going to look bad right now in this first pass. The second pass is where it's going to look amazing. So temper your expectations on this first run. Okay, so we've got red, white, blue, red, red. Okay, so the red is going to be the middle part here. And I am mixing, by the way, when I sound weird, it's because I have my paintbrush in my mouth. I am mixing my glitter cuts, if you notice that. I'm not doing just, oh, here I am, fine, 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 and then glitter, chunky, chunky, chunky. I'm trying to mix that up a bit. So just kind of plan accordingly if you're like me and like to do that too. This is the one that's going to get a little sketchy. So just like that, you're going to end up with red glitter where you don't want it, but that's okay. Like I said, the second pass, you're going to fix all this. And last but not least, this is a crazy pretty color. I thought about doing just pure white. Unfortunately, most pure whites don't have sparkle. They're usually matte glitters. Any other white often is an opal, which is gorgeous. We love opal. But at the same time, especially if you're going up against some dark colors, though that opal can sometimes flash a little bit different or a little wrong. This particular glitter is one that I haven't had any huge issue with doing that. Plus, it's got little silver shards in it, which I think is going to be really pretty. So, oh yeah. Now, when you bang very gently. That is the #1 rule when it comes to that. Because when you do this, like you've got reds and blues, if you're like, here, let me bang all this real hard to get the silver off, red and blue is going to go into your silver and you're going to be sad, all right? Anytime you're doing something where you have a lot of dark colors and then like white and yellow, you know, sometimes you got to know when to sacrifice and when not. So definitely be mindful. You don't want to bang real hard. That tiny little bit of silver you're going to save is going to get ruined by the blue and red that's going to, you know, ultimately fall into it. So now I'm going to add a very thin layer of the silver here, knowing that's basically going to make a mess. Okay, that's okay. We're going to come back and fix that. It just is what it is. And then we'll do the opposite side. It's going to be so pretty. I love all the different ways you can celebrate, you know, holiday colors in Tumbler style. You know, that's the fun part of being creative, is all the different designs and ways you can do that. And this is just, geodes are always so dramatic. Geodes are so extra, as they should be. And you know what? I'm going to cheat a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and just add the Mod Podge for this too. While we're here, okay, now, keep in mind, you will always have one side, in my opinion, that looks better than the other. The reason being, obviously, the top of the curve, you've got a lot more real estate to you know, work your magic. This side, you always are kind of limited, I always feel, but honestly, it's all good. Now, keep in mind, by doing the point method of mine, you'll see here, you've got plenty of real estate on both sides to where you can add a name, a saying, you know, whatever you want. Also, keep in mind, this is all going to get the glitter part. Once this is done and it gets 2 runs of epoxy, you're going to tape off this glitter, okay, this geode, and then you're going to spray paint this white. So, you know, if you were like me and like, say you normally went like way too much on the blue and now it's uneven and now you have like this much space to leave a name, you can always fix that. So at this point, what we're going to do, we're going to let this sit for about an hour because it's hot as heck out here. We're going to let this sit, everything dry, and then we're going to come back, do a second pass, bring all these colors to life, and then we are going to be good to go. Okay, so we are back. It has not been an hour, but it has been long enough for me to go and do 3 other of these. This cup is for a customer order. She ordered 4 of these, including a kid's cup. You want to see how concentrated you can be, put this on a kid's cup. But it's been a long enough amount of time to where we can at least put a second run on the dark colors. Now, let's stop here real quick. The white, you're probably not going to have to touch. Okay, your white is good. Like, it's not anything that's going to, you know, you need more to saturate it. What we're focusing on are the darker colors. Now, my thing is this. If I was doing, say, a blue and teal cup, all right, and I'm going to go through and do the blue, and then I'm going to do the teal, and if a little bit of teal gets in with the blue, that's okay, because blue and teal go together. That I'm not worried about. It's not a big deal. But something like this, dark blue, flaming red, it's going to be noticeable. That's something that we need to be concerned about. Plus, we have chunky glitter on top of it all too. So we are going to do this. Because the colors are literally right next to each other, we're going to break this up a bit. You can use your own discretion on whether this is something you want to do. If this was not a customer cup, but for the sake of the tutorial, would I maybe speed through it? Possibly. But for a customer cup, of course, I'm not going to. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to touch up the blue. Okay. Both of these blues. I'm going to let it sit, you know, let's say maybe another half an hour, and then come back and add the red separately. I don't want the red bleeding to the blue leading into the red. If this was a design where the blue was on the outside and the red was just on the inside, you could sit there and literally like kind of position your cup to where your glitter was going on the colors it needed to, and it wouldn't go over to where it didn't need to be. But for something like this, you've got red right next to blue. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too close. So for the sake of being cautious, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to update all the blue colors and clean all that up. We're going to let it dry. Then we're going to come back and we are going to clean up the red. So that's what we're going to go do right now. We are very lightly. We're not going real heavy. Okay. We're not going to use real heavy brush strokes. Very aggressive. We're very lightly just going to kind of go and pat on another layer of Mod Podge. Now, this, for all intents and purposes, is dry, the first layer. But, you know, there's dry, and then there's take a real rough brush and heavily, you know, apply something to it kind of dry. So right now, it's dry enough to be able to do this and not have any drama. But like I said, I'm not trying to hurt it. So just kind of take your time. It doesn't need to be perfect. Like you'll see here, I've got, you know, I'm not 100%. A couple of those lines, I'm not worrying about going all the way to the edge or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, let's not stress too hard on some of the particulars on this. And just take your time and just pat another layer. Don't forget that bottom. And then what I will do too is, while we're here, we're going to go ahead and do the opposite side too. And I feel like I should be talking right now, but I gotta be honest. This part I feel like I need to concentrate. So, all right, now I do one pass, shake it off, do the other side. Gently shake it off, and then I come back on that first side again and then do one more pass. Come back to the second and do one more pass. Shake off, not aggressively, like don't kill your geode, like don't be all like bang bang, you know what I mean? You're gonna get more debris falling than you are loose glitter that you're trying to save, so just kind of be mindful of that. Okay, and when it comes to touching these kind of things up, I always do the fine first, the glitter second, because we all know that glitter, the chunky, is going to at some point fall off, and just this way, just I don't know, it's just my method. So in the interest of this video not being 15 hours long, just follow suit. You know what you're doing. Go ahead and just apply another thin layer of Mod Podge to each of the individual colors, and then add your glitter. Wait for all the blues to dry before doing the reds, and then once everything is dry, you're going to move on to the next step. Okay, guys, it is approximately 9,000 degrees out here in this back corner of the garage, so we're going to make this fast. Here is our cup. I did 4 of these. I don't know if this is actually the one I started with, but they're all the same. So we're gonna move on from there. I have a super soft makeup brush. Now this looks very dirty because it's blue. I promise you there's nothing coming off of this. There's nothing that's going to like do anything. Okay, we're good. What I am gonna do is take this. Is this necessary? No. Am I gonna do it anyway? Yes. The silver is good, but I wanna make sure that any loose glitter is not in the silver if it doesn't need to be in the silver. Now, I'm going to very lightly take this, very lightly, and just kind of knock off any excess glitter that might be hanging out in that silver area. Did I accomplish anything? I don't know, but I still feel better doing it. Now, this is before sealing it. Once you seal this, it is jammed up jelly tight and you are not going to move anything. Because this is, see, now I'm looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's blue right there. Get off that. That's what happens when you start looking too close at some of these things. Does it matter that there is glitter on the silver part? If it's aggressive, that's one thing, we can fix it. If it's a little sprinkling, I'm not going to worry about that. It's a freaking geode. It's fine. So what we are going to do, now that I took my little feather brush and brushed off anything that may be extra on there, I am going to go ahead, hit this with spray sealer. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to hit it with spray sealer again, and then we're going to epoxy it. Why are we hitting it twice? History tells me that even if you seal it once you start adding your epoxy, your hand is just on, no matter how soft you go with it, it's still going to move glitter. You know what I mean? It just is. So 2 sealings makes me feel better. Makes me feel like I'm being a better geode maker. If it was something, like I said, where we were doing, you know, blue and teal, and it wasn't something very specific, red, white, and blue, I wouldn't really worry so much about there being, you know, a 1% cross-contamination of the glitter. Red, white, and blue, I'm trying to keep that as pure as possible. So, you know, yeah, we're going to go ahead, seal it, we're going to go ahead and let it dry. We're going to seal it again. We're going to send it for epoxy. Now, okay, you are going to go very light. You are not trying to dig into that glitter. You literally are just trying to skim the top, for lack of better words. Understand, there's going to be glitter that's going to move. It just is. It's glitter. If anything blatantly, horrifically happens, we can fix it before the next run of epoxy. But for now, just use your fingertips and go very light and just try to cover as much of that glitter with the epoxy as you can. Oops. And honestly, I don't worry about going too light or too heavy. I just am trying to get the epoxy on the cup. Probably would have helped if I had gotten the epoxy out of the way of the frame. Sorry about that. See, like I said, it's going to happen. And then what we'll do is before the next run of epoxy, we'll fix anything that needs to get fixed. Any stray, random, chunky glitter, we'll fix. But just get the epoxy on the cup. Get as much full coverage with your epoxy as you can. Let it go. And like I said, anything that needs to get fixed will get fixed before the next run. This is just to try to seal that glitter in. And this is just the base coat. Okay. This is what our cup looks like at this time. Okay. Now, obviously, this is not 100% smooth, but it's, you know, let's say a strong 85%. You know what I mean? Like, it's got 2 runs of epoxy on it, so it's not completely raw and jagged glitter all the way around. It is not smooth by any means. I don't know if you can see all that, but it's nothing that is, in theory, one sand down and another coat wouldn't handle. Okay, it's kind of where you want this to be at this point. Here's where things are going to get a little bit, you got to stop and look. Okay, so obviously the white is all, you know, a mess, and that's fine, because our next step is this. We are going to, you know, I'm not worried about sanding this part down, but since we can, we will. And in theory, the next, you know, the next steps are we're going to paint all in this white area. So we're going to tape off with painter's tape, which is, in my world, a blue tape. It's very low adhesion, so it's not going to leave stickiness in the residue. We're going to paint, or excuse me, we're going to tape up this entire geode, both sides, and then we would spray paint. Okay, now these cups are going to have a white base, so there's things that need to, you got to stop and consider some steps here before just jumping in. Obviously, black being the Cadillac of all paints under epoxy, and it hides everything, and you know, as I always say, you can put a Buick under black paint and no one's going to see it once you put epoxy on it. White is the opposite. White paint is the equivalent of wearing white jeans and a white top to a summer barbecue, okay? And all they're serving is barbecue chicken. You understand where I'm going with this? White shows everything. Everything. I love white paint bases. I think they're gorgeous. And at the same time, I hate them. I hate them because they're so problematic. So this is one of those cups that, as long as you take care with this, especially right now, on these next couple steps where it's like where I'll say the most vulnerable, you're gonna be fine. Like, honestly, it's one of those things that I would rather like throw all of the worst case scenarios at you so you can be prepared. And then if none of those happen, then you're like, hey, that was pretty easy. But you're at least like, you know, you got the knowledge in there. So next time, if it does happen, you know what to do. A couple of things that I immediately see, and it's one of those things you kind of have to use your decision tree and see how much it's going to affect things or if it doesn't, okay? When I look at my cup, it has just a tiny, tiny little flare at the bottom there. Am I worried about that? No, I'm really not. Like, it's enough to where I'm like, yeah, a little fat bottom, but not enough to where I'm like, oh no, there's a great big ridge at the bottom, okay? If it was something where this was a huge, you know, my cup completely dipped on the spinner, which has happened before. It's got a huge, you know, it's got a huge foot on it. What would my steps be? Well, normally my steps would be obviously to sand that to where it's, you know, level, even, smooth, however you want to say it, to where you're happy with it, and move on, you know. The thing is this, especially me, I use an electric sander for things like that because I'm too old and I like myself enough not to make myself do that by hand anymore. Anything that you do to this white to be painted area is going to be noticed. So if you are like me and you have an electric sander, or even if not, even if you do it by hand using a sanding block, if you real aggressive, like say you've got a foot on the end of that, on the bottom of that cup, or you know, a muffin top on the top, and you have to aggressively sand, okay, and you sand it all down, before you do anything, look at that. And what you'll see is one part, that whole little section that you took care of, has a different texture than the rest, okay? Which seems like a great big duh moment. But the thing is this, if it has such a substantially different texture than the rest of the cup, when you tape this geode off and you spray paint it, that difference is going to be extremely noticeable, okay? Now, this is one of those things that, you know, you spray paint it, you see it, now all of a sudden you're like, well, what the hell do I do with that? There is nothing to do with that. At that point, you run it for epoxy, okay? Will it still be noticeable? That's the part that gets a little bit, okay. Is it going to be noticeable enough to where anybody's going to notice it but you? Also, you know, that's the thing with white spray paint cups. And this is, I hate saying this, but it's true. When it comes to, you know, paint cups, not even just white, light pink, teal, you know, there's no hard rules when it comes to certain scenarios. And I say that meaning this. You could sit there, sand that bottom down, okay? You can even be like, oh no, it's different, and like sand the entire cup, okay? Which honestly is not a bad idea. And then run it for epoxy. When you know, spray paint it, run it for epoxy. When you do that, I have seen times where discrepancies in the texture will even themselves out under epoxy. And it's just one of those hoodoo voodoo kind of scenarios where you can't say that every single time, once I cover that in epoxy, it's going to work every time. And I can't even give you like the parameters of when it works and when it doesn't. I can just tell you that I've seen it happen to where, you know, things just kind of, the universe aligns just right into what you thought was going to be extremely noticeable under epoxy. When the epoxy goes down, it all just evens out and you don't notice it. There's other times where you're like, well, shoot, that's really obvious. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind, all right? If that's something that is going to be a concern and you don't want to play Russian roulette with that, after you sand down that foot, what I would do is send it for, you know, a micro, very little, micro run of epoxy, and then, you know, move on, okay? That way the problem is fixed before you're even to a fixing problem situation. Number two, you want to make sure, as you're looking at this, getting ready to spray paint, that your areas that are going to be white are all filled in perfectly, all right? There's no epoxy skips, because if there's a skip in the epoxy, there's going to be a skip in the spray paint, okay? You're going to see that. You know, the other thing is, if, you know, we have a ton of glitter, a ton of chunky glitter, if you have in these areas where there is going to be spray paint, a micro bubble, you know, where you wouldn't normally, that's not a big deal. Once you hit spray paint, it becomes larger than Godzilla, okay? If you have a piece of chunky glitter that is 99% covered and there's a tiny little, you know, tiny little point sticking up through the epoxy, that's going to be seen, okay? Godzilla moment there. So these are the things that you need to consider before you hit this with spray paint, because once you hit it with spray paint, you hit it with spray paint. You know what I mean? The only thing you have to do at that point is to let it dry, you know, sand down the affected area, and then spray paint again, and then probably spray paint again. Has it happened to me? Absolutely. That's why we're having this conversation. The biggest thing is this. If that happens, you sit there and tape off your geode, you spray paint, you know, you do a rough sand. I mean, a real easy sand. You know, the main concern is obviously if there's like a huge foot where you're really having to go at it. but just like a normal everyday average sand done, okay? You tape off your geode, you spray paint it, and you see right, and it always happens right in the middle of the cup, let me tell you that too. There's a micro bubble, and it's obvious now. What are you gonna do? Exactly what I said. You're going to wait for your paint to dry. You're going to sand that part down. All your paint's going to come up around there. Okay, that just is what it is. But you're going to sand that down until it's smooth. You know, brush off all of the paint that's, you know, sanded up, for lack of a better term. It's early in the morning, so bear with me on some of this. I haven't had the coffee to get the brain going yet. And then you're going to spray paint it again. Okay, and it's still going to be a little bit obvious. So you're going to wait for that to dry, and you're going to spray paint it one more time. It's just the part of, it's just what happens with working with white spray paint. So that's where we're at right now. I'm going to go ahead and do a rough sand on the entire cup to try to make sure that there's absolutely no micro bubbles hiding anywhere for me. And then I'm going to take this off. We're going to spray paint. Now, another thing to, real quick, with your spray painting, watch any other videos where, like, you've seen my husband spray paint. He is an extremely thorough spray painter. Like, he literally, like, takes his time and makes sure everything is completely covered. Me, I have a tendency to go real light. All right. So what, for something like this, if you go real heavy with your spray paint to where your spray paint runs, because it does, it happens, you know, that run is going to be seen. What I'll do is light. I'll do 2 light runs of spray paint versus 1 heavy, because 1 heavy, especially right now when it's so hot, that our paint runs. Our paint will run real easy. So I will do 2 thin layers of spray paint to get my full coverage look. So just keep that in mind too. Okay, so we're gonna go tape up the cup, get it spray painted. Okay, so this is painter's tape. It is like next to no stick. Okay, and then how I do this is I will line this up right before where the glitter meets where the paint's gonna go, and then using my thumb and my finger, I just kind of like wiggle waggle it around, oops, and keep it in frame. I'm not trying to bring this right up to that line to where it goes over, because keep in mind, if you bring your paint tape up into the white section and you spray paint it, what's going to happen is that section between where your glitter and your paint, like for example, if you're running your tape, okay, you're taping, and you, instead of keeping it on this side of the blue line, say you bring your tape out here accidentally, okay? When you spray paint, that section between the white and the blue that you covered too much, when you take that tape up, the spray paint is going to be here, when instead it should be going all the way to the edge there. So just make sure you are keeping your tape on the inside of, you know, that blue and white line there, if that makes sense. And I'll come over and do the next section here. And I just kind of take my finger and my thumb and just kind of wiggle woggle that little, that tape, so that it's not just like a straight line. You know what I mean? You always want that tape to be on the inside of the blue and where that white is going to go, or I should say where your spray paint's going to go. And the more wiggles and woggles and ups and downs, the more interesting it's going to look. So also keep that in mind. Now that you have your outlines done, go ahead and fill in the inside of the geode with your painter's tape. You want to press down firmly. You want to make sure your entire inside of the geode is 100% covered, and be sure that that paint is pressed down, that paint tape is pressed down pretty strong so that spray paint can't get in between any of those tape layers. Okay, one last thing before we hit this with spray paint. Let's talk about your bottom, okay? There ain't nothing wrong with the fat bottom girl. Okay, we make the rockin' world go round. However, it's a problem with cups when it comes to geodes. Keep in mind, half of your bottom is glitter. If it's not chunky glitter, it's at least glitter. Okay, and obviously that means it's got a higher profile to where the epoxy is having to cover. In theory, as you've been going through and adding your epoxy runs, this is getting very evenly coated. But even right now, as I look, I can see like, you know, the middle of this dips down a little bit more. That's fine. The problem you have to consider is this: when it's off. If you are running your epoxy and it's at an angle, it dips down like a lot of my spinners seem to do, and especially if you are using fast set, which obviously it's going to, you know, not even out as well. If you have an uneven bottom to where when it sits, it wibble wobbles, you need to address that right now. Because if you send this to spray paint and you got a wibble wobble, oh my gosh, there's like 17 different hoops you have to jump through to fix it afterwards. And all of those hoops are on fire, okay? It's a nightmare. And it's one of those things that I cannot tell you how many times I have, you know, been ready to send cups out to customers or have actually sent cups to customers, and there's a wobble and it has to get fixed, and it's the very end. You know what I mean? Like we're at the point of where, you know, we're putting postage on the cup and you got to stop and fix it. Black cups, not a problem. Pain in the butt, absolutely. Not a problem though. White cups, effing nightmare. So just, you know, check as you're going through all these steps, stop for a minute and check. Set your cup on a solid surface, kind of, you know, hit it. You know what I mean? Like do something. That's what we're doing. You want to see if there's a wibble wobble. If there is, you want to stop immediately and address it. You don't want to be like, okay, you know what? I'll handle that. I'm going to go do that real quick. I'm going to handle that on the next step. No, address it now. Because if it's uneven, every single time you add epoxy, it's getting more and more uneven. And when you get to the point where now you've added spray paint, trying to fix a white spray paint cup after it is spray painted is a freaking nightmare. Okay, it just is. So stop now, make sure you're even, and as you're going through and adding these epoxy layers, make sure you are coming in and just literally trying to even out that bottom with every single run. Trust me, trying to fix a fat bottom, wobbly bottom cup when on white spray paint is, it's a nightmare. It's Armageddon. Let's just put it that way. It's an Armageddon situation. Everything's on fire, nothing works. You got 14 steps you have to do. Will it work? We don't know. Is the cup ruined? You gotta start you start over from the white paint base forward. Maybe. I've had to do that. So just trust me, you know, check those fat bottoms as you go. Make sure you don't have one. If you do, fix it right then. Okay, now let's talk real quick about what not to do while your paint is drying. Right now, when this cup is getting spray painted and is not have its first run of epoxy on it yet, it is the most vulnerable. It is as vulnerable as a brand newborn kitten, okay? You do not want to take this time as your paint is drying to say, hey, I've got 15 other cups I need to go glitter. Let me go ahead and go do that. No, you're not. No, you're not, sis. You're going to go stand at the back of your garage with your 32-ounce cup of coffee, and you're going to enjoy this blissfully, disgustingly hot morning while you wait for your paint to dry. The reason is this: anything you have on you, okay, anything that is extra, it's inevitable. It's like a magnet. Do not think I'm lying. Do not think I'm over exaggerating. If you think I am, don't listen to anything I'm saying. Do what you want to do. See if I'm right or if I'm wrong. If you go and, you know, we all know glitter gets everywhere. Even if you're not like handling, you know, glitter, like pouring glitter out and stuff like that, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So if you take your cups and you're like, hey, I'm going to go get more work done. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit my spray adhesive. I'm going to go glitter in my glitter room. I'm going to come back, I'm going to seal it. Okay, you still have glitter on you. It's inevitable. You're going to get glitter somewhere on you. Okay. Do not go take the dogs out. Don't go play with the dogs. Dog hair will be on you. You know, you get what I'm saying? Don't go make an English muffin. All right. You are going to get crumbs somewhere on you. All right. It's just, it is what it is. And especially, you know, me, myself, and I work out here in like, you know, the waiting room to hell. And I am like sticky and gross. And like, if I look at glitter from across the room, it's stuck to me. Okay. It's everywhere. So if you think that you're going to spray paint your white cup and you're going to wait on that to dry and you're going to go do other things, glitter, dust, dog, hair, you know, breakfast, you know, anything, all right, inevitably, no matter how careful you are, it's going to get on you. How many times have we sat there and, you know, gone and, oh, I don't know, picked up a cup and moved it from A to B, and you look down and you're like, how did I get glitter on me? That's how, okay? It's not an everyday joke for no reason. So at this point, yeah, go stand with your coffee. You know, if you want to be inside, just understand the dogs are going to jump on you, and now you're, you know, you're contaminated. So just hang out, wait for your paint to dry, enjoy the solitude, don't touch anything, and then we're going to move it on to epoxy. So what we are going to do next is I use my fingernail, the very edge, and pull straight down, okay? Bootyful. And then I turn it around and I do the same thing. Grab it by the edge, if at all possible. I mean, honestly, it's tape. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And grab it off. Okay. Beautiful. Now, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Grab on the actual geode parts, which are fine. Touch nothing. Let this rub up against nothing. Don't sprinkle anything on it. Don't stand on it. Don't breathe on it. Put it on your spinner. Step away. It is completely plausible, and this happens all the time, and it's not a big deal. You tape everything down, you press down your tape, you spray paint it, and then when you go to take all your tape off, you see where spray paint is left behind, like it got in between the layers. This, okay? Do not do this sideways. Do it up and down. Grab your sanding block, and just very lightly go over that part. And then just brush that off. And it'll take that extra paint right off. And then, again, treat it like a bomb. Don't touch anything. Add it to your spinner. Now we're going to go epoxy. Okay, so now mix up approximately 20 mLs of your favorite epoxy, and with a gloved hand, apply it lightly to your cup. Don't forget to blow out your micro bubbles, and then just let that spin. Once your epoxy is cured, give it a light sand, and then go ahead and get ready to add the paint pen, you know, lines around the geode parts. I use this particular brand in the fine size, sure. And then just go ahead and, after giving your cup a light sand with your hand, brush off all of the sanding dust, and then take your time and just outline those individual colors with your paint pen. When you're done with one side, make sure it's dry before flipping over to the next side, as you are not trying to smear that paint. And then, just like I said, take your time, have fun with it, put all the little wibble wobbles in there to make it interesting, and you are good to go. Once you are done, you're going to send it to epoxy. Add a little bit of diamond dust to your epoxy to give everything a little bit of a sparkle, and don't forget to blow out your micro bubbles. I didn't videotape that part. I'm sorry. Hey guys, what's up? Shut up. Look at all of them. Where am I at? Where's my film? There we are. No. Focus. There we are. Look at all of that. Oi, 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 oi. Geodes are so much fun to do. They're not problem children. They're really actually pretty easy, surprisingly, for as much bang for the buck that you get on that glitter and the drama. But there are steps to it. There's definite steps to it. It's not something that you want to rush through. You know, I've done it. I've banged out a geode from top to bottom in one day. I wouldn't recommend it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that you're like, but it certainly can be done, especially if you're using something like KS Resin Fast Set, my go-to. But, you know, it's definitely something that you want to take your time with and let all of the moving pieces that need time to rest, let them rest. And honestly, they're the prettiest freaking cups. They really are. And I absolutely adore, when it comes to, you know, 4th of July and you know, Independence Day, you know me by now. You know we gotta have all the extra. We need all the sparkles, all the spangles, all the bangles, all the everything. So geodes are a great way to bring all of that extra oomph to a cup. Let's talk about it. So what we have to begin with, in the beginning, you know, you can do different things for your base. Now, I always start with a white spray painted base. I just always have. You know, I think in like the first 2 geodes I ever did, I went ahead and like, you know, drew where the geode, the colors were going to be in paint first, so that those glitters were being put down on a colored backer based on whatever color they were. If you have the paint to marry up with the, you know, the colors you're going to use, you know, and you have the time to do that and wait for that paint to dry, go for it. You know what I mean? It's an extra step, but I can't say, you know, it's a wasted step. I have always just had a white backer, and, you know, which works really well for, you know, my most popular geodes were more lighter colors, or I shouldn't say, I had like 1 or 2 geodes that just I did over and over and over again, and they were more on the lighter side, rose golds and peaches and things like that. When you get into something like darker colors, like, you know, the blue on this or the red or anything else, having a paint base, it would be helpful. I can't say it would be bad. I don't normally do it. I know I did it in the beginning, like when I first started doing geodes. Because, you know, in the beginning, you're just going buck wild with, you know, I like purple, I like green, I like blue. You know, but even then, doing all of that, I still, after like maybe the first or second one of adding an acrylic paint, you know, base under those glitter colors, after that, I still went back to white. So, you know, you can do either one. There's not a wrong answer with that. One thing that I'm going to say, okay, one thing I'm going to say, and this is a disclaimer on any cup, not just geodes, okay, from somebody who has done this. I told you, any and every mistake you can make, I probably made. Okay, so once upon a time, we had in the garage, what did we even have? I don't know, stand lights? I don't know. I didn't have a light in my garage. I don't have like an overhead light. So I'm pretty sure I had some kind of like janky ass stand lights, like photography lights from the food blog or something. And then I flipped over to a big bright LED plug-in light. There are literally 2 plugs in my entire garage, and one is on the ceiling. Circa 1987, okay? So I have like this one like light on I now plug into the plug on the top, and it like, you know, it's got this little like 4 angled light situation. It lights up the entire garage. Things will look, especially if you are doing this at night. Okay, if you're somebody who works at night in your garage or in a space where maybe the lighting isn't 1000% on point, be mindful of that. Because I have gone out in the beginning of my LED lighting experience and looked at a cup at like 11 o'clock at night as it was spinning, and it looked like freaking garbage. The glitter was all transparent. The color was wrong. You know what I mean? Like 100 different things wrong with this, to where I was like, ah, because I was all brand new and shiny, right? So I went ahead, I stripped off everything. What was it? I want to say, gosh, I had been doing something epoxy method. I know I was, because I took all the glitter off that I just put on. I was just so upset. Why does this look so horrible? Your lighting, because the next day in sunlight, real light, that cup was fine. I completely trashed that cup for no reason. Same thing in case in point, when you look at some of these darker colors, if you are in a similar scenario where, say, you're in your garage, it's late at night, the lighting is maybe meh, you know, it's going to show you, oh my God, everything looks horrible. What happened here? It looks horrible. And then when you look in the daytime, you're like, this is perfectly fine. So be mindful of that, okay? If anybody who works out in a garage or in a setting where you don't have, like, you know, sunlight lighting all day long, keep that in mind, because even now I will sit there and watch these geodes spin, and it looks like that blue, especially the light blue, it looks like there's like 20% coverage. It looks horrible. And then you bring it in under real life and you're like, no, it's totally fine. So be mindful of that, because I've absolutely messed up cups that at least more than once because of lighting. So just something to keep in mind. Yes, I made 17 videos on the care of the spray paint, you know, area there. And I promise you, I was not exaggerating or lying at any point. Okay. You've got to be mindful when it comes to white cups. Now, if you know, even if you're doing, you know, teal, you know, pink, but especially white is horrible to work with. It's so pretty. It's a nightmare sometimes though, you know, so just be really, really mindful of that. Please heed my warnings. If not, you're going to be retaping and redoing that section. And sometimes you need to go make those mistakes. Sometimes you got to be like, my friend Heather, she don't know what she's talking about. Okie dokie. You let me know how that works out. If you have better luck than me, God bless you. You're doing awesome. Anytime I try to like totally skip over and be like, nah, I can totally shortcut this area. No, you can't. The universe says, sit back down. No, you cannot. So if you have a better luck than I do, run with it. I'm just laying out all the worst case scenarios. That's what I'm here for. You know, once you get the spray paint down, once you're happy with it, once you're sending it for, you know, epoxy again, you know, it's just one of those things that I've had geodes where I can sit there and lay that decal down and send it for epoxy, and in one run, it's done, jammed up, jelly tight, perfect, out the door we go. And then I have others that it's like, but I love you and I don't want to leave you, so I'm going to keep giving you different problems to fix, you know, so that I can stay with you longer. You know, every geode is different, just like every tumbler is different. So you have to kind of work with what you have and fix what, you know, comes up. I'm just trying to lay out like the biggest problems that I've run into, you know, like gnats on white spray paint cups. Throw the whole cup away. Throw the whole cup away. Cancel the order. Close the shop. Don't ever do it again. But like I said, just, you know, take your time. I'm just trying to give you worst case scenarios so that you know how to, you know, fix them in case they come up. You know, when it comes to your paint pens, I love paint pens. They are problematic sometimes though. And what I find works best for me when I am doing paint pens, you know, geodes are really the only, geodes are pretty much the only one that I really use the pens on. If you do a very light sand, and I mean like a very light, you literally are just trying to scuff up that epoxy a little bit, and then be sure to wipe off your dust real well. Even if you think there's not dust, wipe off your dust. You don't have to get all crazy with it, like you're not breaking out alcohol or anything like that, but just with your hand, wipe off the extra dust. Your pen is going to dig into those little non-sealable scuffs, and you know, it's going to glide better. It shall glide across your cup like butter. It'll glide much better. If you don't wipe off your dust, that dust, especially if you're using like an extra fine, you know, a super micro fine tip, it is going to absolutely jam your tip up. So wipe off your dust. Most of mine, like this is fine. Okay, this is a fine, focus. This is a fine, you know, pen versus like an extra fine, which is much thinner. You know, there's no preference there. If you want a thinner line, I've had some customers be like, that line is too thick. Okay, well then I would go with the extra fine. Extra fine, I feel like you have a little more grace because it's super micro thin and your mistakes aren't seen as well, and it's not as obvious of these lines, but it's not as dramatic either. So it's going to kind of come down to personal preference on which way you want to go with that. I don't think there's a wrong answer either way. Just kind of, like I said, be mindful of, you know, adding that little, you know, 10-second sanding on there definitely helps your pen glide better. If not, then it's going to kind of like fade in and out. Even if it's a new pen, it's going to kind of, the ink kind of fades in, fades out. And that's where you're like, just freaking draw, that's your job. So, and then you got to kind of go back over and then go back over and then go back over. So just, you know, take a minute, you know, get familiar with it if you're not used to using them, and you'll be fine. And by the way, there's 1,000 shades of gold out there. So some are more green, some are more in your face, obnoxious, you know, everybody likes something different. So just grab a paint pen that you like. I'll link the ones that I use down below. Those are really the only ones that I use, even if they are sometimes a little temperamental. So those are just the ones I use. I think that kind of takes care of everything. I think everything else we covered in the video. Just take your time with these. They're a lot of fun, but take your time with them and kind of go through your steps and you're going to be just fine. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always here for you guys. And I think that wraps me up at this point. You know, I love you guys. I will see you next week. Have a good one. Bye.